guys, as you may or may not remember, the last one was really short, so we're just going to get right into chapter 14. Again, this is Clarice being spells Trouble by Lauren Child, and we are in chapter 14, page 134. So please join me there if you have the book. Otherwise, don't sweat it, and grab whatever you want to make yourself comfortable. Maybe you're eating, maybe grab a snack, maybe start a puzzle, whatever you want to do, maybe color, I don't know, whatever floats your boat. But let's get right into this. Chapter 14, page 134. Some things are true, but not completely true. Carl Rumberry has been given his last and final warning from Mr. Pickering, and there will be no more chances. Even though Mr. Washington tried his best, I know this because I overheard Mrs. Mars talking to Mrs. Wolverton. This means that one more slip-up and Carl has to leave our school. This makes me sad, because even though Carl has decided not to be my friend anymore, I think school will not be the same without him. When I get home, I rush in and turn on the TV. I'm sitting there watching Ruby Redford. It's before dinner, and I'm quite ravenous, really hungry. And my tummy is making those kind of burbling noises, which if I was hiding in a hedge spying on someone, would really give me away, which is why Ruby always carries a special Ruby cookie in her backpack. They are highly nutritious and fend off hunger. That's what they say on the ads. They sell them at our supermarket. Mom really rarely lets me have them because she says they're commercial rubbish and really one is just paying for the package. The packaging. I love the packaging. That's what I like about them. I will buy nearly anything with Ruby Redford on it. In this episode, called Hang in There, Buddy, Ruby has got herself into a very tight spot trying to rescue Clancy Crew. Count von Viscount has set the dogs on her, and what's worse is her special bike with rocket boosters has got a flat, so she has to ditch it and run like a mad crazy thing to get away. Sorry, I see birds out of the corner of my eye, so I'm just seeing what they're doing. And Ruby Redford might be the fastest runner in her school, but can she be faster? And Ruby Redford might be the fastest runner in her school, but can she run faster than a dog? The answer is no, because no one can. I don't think, unless it is a sausage dog. Proper name, Dachshund. Dachshund. I've literally said that before, I can't say it now. Looks like a sausage on legs, good at smelling things out, but doesn't have a personal scent like other dogs. Oh, interesting. Sausage plus dog equals sausage dog. And it's no use hiding from dogs because you know what dogs are like, good smellers. And they will find you wherever, even if you are running in a stream of water, they will sniff you out. If you want to outwit a dog, Carl Rumberry says you must confuse them with different odors so that they don't know what they are chasing anymore. Easier said than done. Luckily, Ruby knows this and has brought some of her really smelly socks, which she puts on a passing deer who runs off in them, which of course the dogs follow, thinking it is Ruby herself. And then she sprays this special deodorizing spray all over herself, which dissolves all her odor and gives her the smell of a shrub, so she can simply blend in. You can see what I mean about amazing ideas. It just wouldn't occur to me to do that. Then she says, "Sniff that, suckers." I love watching Ruby Redford because it just sort of carries me away. I almost feel like I am her. And I find myself saying things like, "Oh, brother," and this is totally yawn. She has an amazing way of talking. I'm trying to perfect it myself. And the other day when I got home from being at Betty's, I walked in and my dad was reading the paper in his glasses, and Mom was doing some knitting, and Mina was making something out of his toilet paper rolls, and I said, "What is this? Geek Central?" And Dad looked up from his reading, dipped his eyebrow, and said, Glad you could make it, kid." And I said, "I didn't know you knew Hitch's catchphrase." And he said, "Well, kid, you learn something new every day," which is exactly what Hitch would say. And I say, "You got that right," which is exactly what Clancy Crew would say. And Mom said, "You better believe it, Buster," which is exactly what Ruby Redford would say. And Mina said, "What are you talking about?" which is exactly what I would expect from my maggot brother. Anyway, I'm sitting watching Ruby Redford, but in ad breaks, I'm keeping half an ear out for intriguing information. Sometimes you can pick up top secret things when you're watching TV since nobody thinks you are listening. I hear Granddad talking to Cement, our dog. He says, "How would you like a nice bit of steak? Oh, I bet you would like that, wouldn't you?" "Yes, you would. I'll cut a little bit off of each one, and no one will ever know. I won't tell if you won't." Then I hear a gulping sound of the largest dog and shuffling sound of someone who wears slippers. I go back to watching the ads. They have one for Ruby spaghetti. It's bits of spaghetti all made into words that Ruby Redford would say, things like creep, yeeks, and bozo. You see, sometimes Ruby's butler, Hitch, will write top secret information in the spaghetti. Her parents are completely oblivious about unaware of paying no attention to Ruby's secret agent life. At dinner, Mom says, "I haven't seen Carl around much lately. How's he getting on these days?" I say he's been in more trouble, and Mr. Pickering says he will have to think about asking Carl to leave the school and go to another one because he has done all he can, and if Carl wants to carry on with this sort of behavior without explaining himself, then he really has no choice but to write to his mother and ask her to find an alternative school for him. And he would regret to do this because he must think long and hard about other pupils and what's best for them, and it's a shame. It really is. That's what I heard Mrs. Marsh saying to Mrs. Wilburton, and that Mr. Pickering had said to Carl anyway. Here's the noodles, by the way. The birds. Mom says, "Wow, you certainly do pay attention when you want to." I say, "Well, that's because this is the kind of information that interests me." Mom says, "And what do you think should happen?" And I say, "Well, it is difficult for Mr. Pickering because Carl won't talk to anyone, so no one knows his problems." And Mom says, "What are his problems?" And I say, "Carl doesn't want me to stay." And Mom says, "I see the problem." When Mom serves up the steak, she says, "That's funny. They seem much smaller than when I bought them." I notice Granddad is looking all aged and not like a person who fed our dinner to the dog. I don't tell on him because I don't like people who tell on people, and he would be in serious trouble, and I like Granddad, even if my steak did end up the size of a peanut. I think it's funny because he could have just been like, "Well, when you cook them, steaks get smaller." It's a Ruby Redford rule that somebody's bad luck could be your good luck, and I think she might just be right. This morning I got to school and did some overhearing, which I wished I could have jotted down in my Ruby notebook. What I heard was Susie Wu saying to Bridget Garnett that she had overheard Cindy Fisher saying that apparently Gracie Grappello's mother phoned her mother this morning to say not to bother coming by to pick up Grace because they had the ambulance people over last night because Grace was practicing her moves for the Sound of Music and she slipped and broke an ankle, and now she's on crutches. Of course, this gets me thinking because there is not long till the school play performance, and will her ankle be mended in time? And if not, who will play the part of Liesel? And guess who knows the whole part by heart? On the way into class, I pass Carl Renberry, but he doesn't look at me, and all day he is quiet. And later in class, I am waiting for Mrs. Wilburton to say the news, but she doesn't. So in the end, I am forced to ask because I absolutely have to know. I say, "Mrs. Wilburton, now that Grace Grappello has gotten a broken ankle and has to have crutches, who do you think will play the part of Liesel?" Mrs. Wilburton says, "Well, that just depends on who knows the part, doesn't it?" Then I say, "Mrs. Wilburton, I know the part, because, you see, I do. Because I have been learning it like mad, because Mr. Washington said if you learn things by heart, it is a good way of exercising your memory." And then Mrs. Wilburton goes all shuffly, and she says, "Well, we are not going to discuss it now, since nobody knows whether Grace will be able to perform or not." And Betty says, But Mrs. Wilburton, it takes at least 6 to 8 weeks to mend a broken ankle, and so there won't be time for Grace to mend hers before the play, and she will definitely be needing both ankles for the part of Liesel. It is not a part you can do with just one. Skipping is involved." And Mrs. Wilburton says, "I will be the judge of whose ankles are or aren't right for the part. Thank you very much." Later at home, I'm in the middle of discovering that there is no K and anxious when the doorbell rings and Granddad answers it. It's Carl Rumberry. He's come to collect Granddad and cement for dog training. I hear Granddad say, "Oh, Clarice is home. Shall we get her to come too?" And Carl says, "It's better not to have too many people. It can be very distracting for the dog if there's too much going on." And this might be a bit true, but it's not completely true. That is the end of chapter 14, and we ended on page 143, so we'll pick up on page 144 for chapter 15. Thank you guys for joining me for Clarice Bean Spells Trouble by Lauren Child, and continue to explore the worlds that books create, and we thank the authors out there for that, and have a great rest of your day. Books are just so amazing. So I hope you're comfortable during that with whatever you're doing, and yeah, just have fun. This is a really long closing, but anyway, thank you guys so much for joining and watching. So bye until next time.